I fall backwards on my head onto the ice. I end up getting a concussion, short-term memory loss. I come to in the hospital. Like that's probably like my worst.
You woke up and was like,
injury.
I gotta try football.
Exactly. I gotta hit my head more. I love this feeling.
Like, I got my first. I'm ready.
Might as well get my second,
back.
third,
Yeah,
fourth.
yeah.
Exactly.
I'll bounce back.
Welcome back to Athletics Check, the show in which we talk to nerds about their interest in sports, and they talk to athletes and people in the sports world about the nerdy stuff that they like.
I like how you're using nerd, but you're shying away from the term jock as if you got an email that like, hey, could you?
Yeah, I mean, jock is such a word that doesn't get used anymore. Like people don't really say unless it's a nerd talking about somebody who plays sports, jock doesn't get used.
There's been like a nerd culture renaissance in the past 15 years or so. They're not so much a jock culture.
Right, because jock feels so much less inclusive. Because when you talk about jocks, you're talking about the person on the field doing the thing. Whereas we're talking about people who are who like sports or people who talk about sports professionally.
Yeah.
And
or athletes such as yourself.
Or athletes, yeah. It's like in all of those things. And jock just kind of feels a little bit exclusive of that. But I want to kind of reclaim the use of jock, just like the use of nerd has kind of been reclaimed by the nerds. I consider myself a jock nerd, and I want other people to consider
jerd, if you will.
A knock. All the knocks out there, hit us up in the comments.
All the knockheads.
But yeah, I think the person we have on the show
knock,
today.
knock, who's there? It's the jerds.
Anyway, somebody who is definitely a jerd is Ify Nwadiwe.
He's gonna hate that.
He's gonna not like it. Yeah, Ify's on the show.
Wow, Ify Nwadiwe.
Ify is one of my absolute favorite people. He and I have been able to hang out and interact a ton, probably more than anybody else in the D&D world. Just because Ify has the same kind of idea of just wanting to be as big as possible, physically.
Like mass.
He's got a much bigger personality than me. He's a comedian.
Sure,
but
he's maybe the most around comedian. Ify is, to my knowledge, the honorary mayor of the Los Angeles comedy scene.
I love
Every
that.
single person I know, no matter what field of entertainment they're in, knows Ify.
Sometimes
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, dislike. I mean,
they all
kidding.
love him.
Everybody loves Ify.
Everybody loves Ify.
Nobody has ever met
knows
Ify.
him.
Yes,
It's
nobody's
crazy.
ever met Ify or watched something that he's in. He's like, we don't like that guy.
No, he's the best.
He's the best. I got to meet Ify for the first time back in 2021 or something with you.
I did not know that was your first time meeting Ify.
Yes, no, that was my first time meeting. We hung out at a spot in what was it?
Culver City.
Culver City. We went out with Ify a little bit, and I felt like I was a third wheel for you guys just talking about improv.
Well, okay, so this is the thing. When I moved to Los Angeles in 2017, I had spent the last year and a half at this is too much backstory, I'll cut it short, a manufacturing job where I just funneled podcasts into my head about improv because I was moving down for sketch and improv.
Yeah.
So I had to go through this thing when I started taking classes at UCB, then ultimately doing their work study program, doing tech for their shows in the Inner Sanctum, RIP, where I would meet these improvisers that I knew everything about and had to pretend I didn't know them.
You had the most specific parasocial relationship ever.
And that flash forward still, I was a fan of Ify and I was like, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Tell me about I know everything.
Well, I think we should kind of tangent off of that. We should probably talk about what we're wearing.
Oh, this old thing?
So
this old thing?
Yeah, good for the
this
audio.
old thing?
I'm wearing the Stanton Path of the Gridiron Barbarian shirt from Unite the Realm that I had made a couple years ago. And
What does any of that mean?
it's D&D stuff. You wouldn't get it.
Cool.
And you're wearing my football jersey.
Yeah.
That I gave you 2 years ago when I was on the Browns.
Hell yeah.
And then I think 2 Halloweens ago when we came over to the neighbor's house, your home, for Halloween, you showed up wearing this jersey and embarrassed me.
Yeah, I was you for Halloween.
Yeah, it was very kind. Especially in a year where I was so sad about football. Anyway,
Football players have emotions too.
We do.
And some of them are sad.
some of them are sad. Most of the time, we're just kind of like pumped.
Yeah?
Just kind of.
Yeah, what's the vibe? Is everybody just sort of like ready to go all the time?
No, I mean, a lot of guys are super relaxed in the pregame. My favorite story. Well, we're going to get into Ify's podcast and Ify's
We'll get to
interview.
Ify in a second.
We'll get to Ify in a second. Really quickly, my favorite story about pregame locker room stuff is I was in the locker room for the first time before the game against the Eagles in 2020. My first NFL game, regular season game ever, and I think my energy was kind of a lot for other people, where I was kind of just like I was in the zone, but also I didn't want to be listening to anything because I kind of just wanted to be in the moment. And one of my teammates from across the locker room was like, "Johnny, you okay?" Like when he's just
Pacing back.
Joel Batonio, all pro guard, super great dude. He's just like, "Johnny, you doing okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my first game, and just a little nervous." He's like, yeah, I'd be nervous too. It's just like, yeah, we're going against the Eagles. You should be nervous. So, without further ado, let's welcome on. You know him.
Man who's never nervous.
Never nervous
Not
whatsoever. Comedian, stand-up, writer. He does it all.
Mayor
Ify
of
Nwadiwe,
Hollywood.
Mayor of LA and Hollywood. Ify Nwadiwe, welcome to the show. Ify Nwadiwe, thank you for joining us on Athletics Check.
Thank you for putting up with my setup. You usually have your own setup.
Thank you for having me in your basement right now.
Yeah. No. Look,
This is where the magic happens.
this
right?
is where the magic happens. Yeah, this you've probably seen the best version of this basement because like I have the TV mounted that we're using as
This
as a
I
key
think
light.
this wall is the only place in your place that isn't covered with manga, Gundam, like every possible
Yeah.
thing that is that you can't you are. This show is for nerds to be able to talk
Yeah.
about their sport. You are 100% a nerd.
Oh yeah, a nerd and a maximalist. You know, yeah,
you definitely is.
like
That's
just
way
like
true.
all top to bottom, and really it was like M who was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna put it all up," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, yeah, I didn't know you could do that." For real, I was like,
why
I didn't know
have
that
it-
was
Why have it if you don't get to put it somewhere?
that is very true.
'Cause
Yeah,
I think a lot of us are just waiting to be able to put on like our favorite posters,
Yeah.
your all your Gundams.
Yes.
Until like, oh, I need a bigger place. Like, well, you could just find a place. to
Oh,
put it. You could
100%.
just build another shelf.
yeah. You can. There's closets. I found many a ways of trying to stuff as much nerdy stuff as many places as I can.
Let's stick on the high school stuff. I know
Yeah.
that you wanted to play high school sports, from what I understand.
Oh yeah, so
Let's
my-
get into actual athletics check stuff.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah.
I mean, you are, Ify Nwadiwe is in my show a nerd who likes sports, but
Yes.
you're also like an athlete in your own right, which is kind of the whole idea of the show. First off, I want to say before we get to the high school stuff, every episode I try to remember to get a ratio.
Mm-hmm.
What is your ratio of nerd to jock? I think perfect platonic idea of somebody who's well-rounded is like half nerd, half jock, or like what have you. I want to be able to try to manifest myself to a 50% nerd, 50% jock. What would you say your percentage, what your ratio is?
I'd say I'm close to 50.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting close. I'd say right now it's probably 60-40, maybe even 70-30 on most days. But I think
Okay.
it's someone who goes
On the
to
nerd side,
yeah,
on the jock side.
Yeah, but I feel like someone who goes to the gym regularly. Definitely, I follow sports a lot more closely now. Saints fan, Who Dat Nation. Big into. I grew up in LA, so Kings, Lakers, Dodgers. I'm wearing this this Dodgers Kings shirt because
It's a cool shirt.
yeah. I'm going to the game and
But you're a new Kings fan, from what I understand. You were originally a Long Beach Ice Dogs fan?
yeah, Long Beach Ice Dogs. Yeah. I was. Ice Dogs was the local team, and we would go because my mom would always get us tickets. I've always been a Kings fan at heart, but when you are picking a team based off of location, you're like, that's my team. I don't have to watch it.
Sure.
But now I'm like watching
An active
hockey.
fan, yeah.
Yeah. But funny, the combination, the athletics check,
true.
the nerd stuff. I've started playing NHL 24
Okay.
to try and
Chel,
understand
as
the
they
game
say.
more. Yeah, Chel. Well, funny you should say that because Chel, they like that's the online mode. Chel something.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
I just thought that was the other, like the slang for NHL.
Really? I was wondering why it was called Chel. Now it makes sense.
I think it's just shorthand for the 3-letter phrase of NHL, or I guess specifically the video game. I think you watch NHL, you watch hockey, you play Chel.
Okay, so Chel,
not cello, but Chel.
I played Chel, and boy, let me tell you, I've been offside so many times.
You're still learning the rules.
Oh yeah, because you offsides in hockey.
A lot of icing.
Yeah, buddy. Because it makes sense, right? Get the puck down there and I'll go get it. And it was like, nah, that's a rule. That's a whole.
They thought about that already.
Yeah. I remember I started the first game. I started a fight because I took a shot on the goal after the whistle blew, and they're like, "Nah, we don't do that." Which is
that against another player online?
No, it was in the game.
Okay.
The computer was like, "You're catching my face."
Can't do that.
Yeah, because in basketball, the whistle blows, people still take a shot.
Sure.
Apparently not in hockey.
In football, when coach ices a kicker, a lot of times they follow through with that kick.
Yeah.
But they don't tackle somebody after the whistle.
Yeah. Which makes sense. But hitting the puck in the, I don't think. Well, it is.
It's not cool.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, these were the things I'm learning, and
I love the idea of the video game punishing you for just having fun.
Yeah. It's like,
I think honestly, anytime in Chel, when you start a fight, that's probably like a victory. Really.
Oh yeah, but I lost that fight. I got worked. It's so, and that's I think what's so endearing about hockey is like your pride is on the line for every sport, but there's nothing quite like getting your butt kicked. You're like.
But a lot of those fights don't end in any kind of clean blows.
Oh well, because it's a lot of like grabbing the neck.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, they have like a clip on in the jersey,
so you can't pull the jersey over the head. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but it is all about positioning, and then like you got to remember these fellas are on skates, so you're also just jostling them so they can lose their balance a little bit.
I'll tell you what, the first time that I ever ice skated, when I was like 7 years old, that a friend's, you remember Pickwick in LA?
Oh,
Pickwick ice ring. I don't think they do it anymore. It was famous because Michelle Kwan would practice there or something. It was also I think a lot of people in LA will know what Pickwick is.
Yeah,
it's when I was 7 years old, I was there for a friend's birthday party. Long story short, I fall backwards on my head onto the ice. I end up getting a concussion, short-term memory loss. I come to in the hospital. Like that's probably like my worst.
You woke up and was like, I gotta try football.
Exactly. I gotta hit my head more. I love this feeling.
Like, got my first. I'm ready.
Might as well get my second, third, fourth.
Yeah. Exactly. I bounce back. No, it is interesting.
Contact sport.
I mean, it can't. I mean, hockey. They're going for it, and something. So, my good friend Mallory Amira and Jeremy Lambert, who also great Jock nerds. Jeremy, he used to play for USC hockey. And he plays for a local like Riverside team, but he also like plays Warhammer.
Amazing.
He writes for the Warhammer book. He's a comic book writer. So his full-time job is a writer, but for fun he still hits the ice and plays.
I do love how people don't always understand, people who aren't like super into hockey, the fact that like the hot areas, like I don't know if the South necessarily has hockey, but like Southern California is actually kind of a hotbed for hockey.
Yeah.
My high school won the national championship at one year because they were great, but they're Southern California, Orange County, Las Vegas obviously has got the Golden Knights. UNLV has their own. I don't think it's NCAA, but it's like their own team. So like hearing that when you say that USC has a hockey team, it's like I didn't think about that. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they're a sports school.
Well, it's so funny because I think that, the West Coast specifically is so known for, like Poly and their football, basketball systems. So, but it's funny because even then when you think about it, it's really the South has us beat when it comes to like football. Like that is their.
I'd take umbrage with that. It's always California versus Texas versus Florida.
Yeah.
Like that's the big fight within the NFL, college football. Like in high school sports, there is always the conversation of like who's better. I think California kind of has it beat when it comes to coaching.
Yeah.
So we make the most of like the athletes that we have. But man, the speed in Florida, the physicality in Texas, whenever those three states, like the top teams play each other, it's always fireworks.
Oh yeah. But I just feel like, and it's something that, I also take umbrage with. But in general, I think when it comes to LA, we are a hotbed of so many things that like it is often easy to get like when you go to like my mom's side's from Louisiana, you go out there and it's like LSU, and if it's Saturday, you know it. Whereas like if it's Saturday here, like USC and UCLA could be playing against each other, and you only know if you are near those schools. But outside of it, it's like, oh, there's
too much to distract.
Show.
Yeah, there's too much to distract you in LA. Like that's why Dodger games, the fans are leaving by like the seventh inning stretch, is because one, traffic, and two, it's like there's probably something going on later that night that you got to get to. It's like, I get it. It's it gives LA a bad name in terms of being like a fan city.
Yeah,
but there is positives and negatives, I think, with every sports city.
It's so funny because since I am a TV writer, a comedian, actor, and in the industry, I often am hearing about my own city from people not from here.
Yeah.
And
and people who think they're from here, but like you're born and raised.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But you sit there and you listen to them long enough, and you it almost starts to infect your brain. But I've been season ticket holder for the Lakers, and the way, let them tell it, no one is at these games, but like every and these tickets aren't cheap, and every game it is filled top to bottom to the brim with people there. And to me, when I look up in the nosebleeds and see people there, I'm like, those are the like real diehards. Because with me, it's like if I can't get a good seat, I'm good.
Right.
With them, they're like, no, I want to be there.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's like if I'm using binoculars, I want to be
just being in the arena just has that energy. I think what's cool is like I think a lot of sports cities have their what they're known for. Like when I was in Cleveland, people loved the Cavs, people loved the Guardians, Indians, but even when they were bad, everybody would say Cleveland is still a football city.
Yeah.
It is still lives and dies by the Cleveland Browns. And there's, cities around the US have that same kind of deal. With LA, I think it's a little bit different. I think similar probably to New York, just because there's so many people here that there gets to have, LA gets to have people who are diehards. Like you think about the Clippers, they're like the other LA team, but there are diehards in LA that are Clippers fans.
Oh yeah, and they are mad because the ticket prices have gone up because of all these bandwagon fans when they started having that hot run, and it's
still on it.
Yeah, they're having a hot run. But that's also something to consider too when people kind of like poo-poo us is like, yeah, there are also so many teams. Like if you look at it like, okay, basketball, we have and this is just if we're talking about the city. If we're most places, the state itself only has a team. But if you
all of Nebraska doesn't have its own. Like I went to school in Nebraska, they don't have their own professional team, so it's either UNL, Cornhuskers, or if it comes to NFL, they're either a Chiefs fan or a Broncos fan. You have to go to another state to be able to be a fan.
Whereas like in California,
that's most of the states almost.
In California, if it's basketball, you have the Lakers, the Clippers, the Kings, the Warriors. Like that's 4 different teams, and then we had the 49ers.
And everybody's
the
a
Raiders.
Transplant, so they have their own coming from wherever they're from.
You got the Raiders, the Chargers, you had the 49ers, and now we have the Rams. It's always like there's just so many teams too on top of that. But it's funny because out of all the games, like it's been like pretty packed out with Lakers fan. The only time I've seen like, oh, this is the biggest divide in a home game I've seen in a while was the Knicks game I was just at. And I was like, oh, this is just because so many New Yorkers do live in LA. And we lost,
I will say though, because it's a little bit far. StubHub, or is it still called StubHub? I feel like it's StubHub at this point. When the Chargers played there, I do think that they had the highest percentage of away fans at their home games. Like
for Chargers,
the Chargers when they played at StubHub, and when it's still tough because Chargers, I think all of their fan base is based in San Diego. Yeah. And for one, being in San Diego is basically like a different state at this point when it comes to traveling to LA.
True, yes.
But then they're also incredibly bitter. Like they'll watch the games from home, but they're not going to travel for the games. So when you don't have your own fan base like in the city that you're actually located in, it's so easy for, especially when you're in LA, people from out of state to come in and watch the games. And looking back, I think in the 2019 season or something, when you're looking at these Chargers games, like the Steelers coming into LA would just, the whole stadium was black and yellow and just a little bit of blue, which is just tough when you're like when you're first moving. Like, I felt for those players at the time.
Oh yeah, and I mean the thing is too is like, you know, the Chargers just wasn't a loved team in LA to begin with. When they flirted
they
with
were
it
San
coming
Diego
down.
team.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that's kind of tough for you there, buddy. You know, where when the Rams came, we were like, you know, and they have the history too.
And the Chargers technically
started
do
in
have the history, but the Rams had the history, obviously way more of like a long history, won a Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
But they were also the second team to get here, which is tough. It's like everybody is so stoked for the Rams to get here, and then they go to a Super Bowl, and it's like the whole city is becoming, okay, we love football again. And Chargers are like, I want to be part of that. It's like, nah, we already got our team now.
Yeah, and I know it's pretty, you know, it's pretty tough, you know.
This episode is brought to you by Hero Forge Custom Miniatures. Hero Forge is a free-to-use online character design application that basically means if you want to play a TTRPG and you want to have a 3D printed miniature of your character, Hero Forge is the place to go. You can print them at home, you can print them there, and they will ship them to you. They are always incredibly crafted and designed, and the print process is so exact. It's really impressive. Every time I get to see one of these miniatures, their character design and customization is second to none. You get to 3D model your mini right there on screen, and you can see it as it real time. Updates to any kind of customization you want. Their facial customization is super impressive. Make sure that you go to heroforge.com to design your custom miniature today, and always check back regularly because they always come back with the coolest updates. They have new content every week, whether it's a new piece of clothing, a new race, whatever you can imagine, you can make it on heroforge.com. So go to heroforge.com today to start designing your own custom miniature. What's up, guys? It's Johnny again. I just wanted to thank you for listening and to encourage you to join our Patreon at patreon.com/athletics-check-pod. You'll have access to all of the little mini adventures that I run for each and every guest. This is about 10 to 15 minutes where I run them through a short TTRPG adventure. And for a lot of these people, especially the athletes, it's their first time running a game like this. So it's my honor to get to be their very first game master. At the higher tiers, you get access to having your name shouted out at the end of an episode, or even getting the opportunity to play in a bi-monthly TTRPG game with me or my co-host Travis Reeves. If you're interested in any of that, please go to athletics-check-pod.com or to patreon.com/athletics-check-pod. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Let's get back to the action. You know, there's a handful of people I think that really identify already without me like telling them or encouraging them that they are jock nerds, or like they're nerd jock kind of false binary that they don't necessarily believe in, that they are already riding that line without even realizing it.
I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna be all the way real with you. I don't know how people gonna feel about this, and I literally don't care. You know, because you know when I'd say I came on the scene as it is. With Geek and Sundry.
Sure.
That was me stepping on the scene. Like, so I literally kind of came on the scene with Critical Role real time. And then, you know, then there was Travis and
Travis Willingham, Critical Role.
Yeah. And all the buff boys there. But I was there too, like, hey.
don't forget my name.
Yeah. I'm one of the buff boys.
Put some respect on the name.
I'm one of the buff. Because I feel like there was a level, right? And I think that's what you're kind of trying to do with the podcast. You know, everyone has like 20/20 hindsight. Everyone looks back at things and say that, and it was perfect. Everyone looks back on things and was like, "Oh, it's always been good," and it's not. Like, we can be real. Like, you know, when Escape from the Bloodkeep came out, like, I feel like people were excited, but people were like, "What the hell is this? Where are our intrepid heroes?" You know, and it kind of had a growing thing. Like, we did have to earn that respect, which is natural. Like, you've grown attached to these players, and you don't know who the hell this big chocolatey man it was. People knew people knew who the cast was.
That beautiful chocolate man.
But it is like what's going on here, and then you learn to love it. And I think it is one of those things, right, where I do feel like there was an element where I felt, you know, and this is just even outside of TTRPG, but when I would be on Geek and Sundry shit stuff, I don't know if you're cursing.
We can curse. I think it's
okay. Don't
go crazy.
I know I'm not going crazy, but you know, I would be on you know, Geek and Sundry and stuff, and I would read some of the YouTube comments, and people would be like, "Who is this guy?" Like, and it
I've
wasn't
fallen into that trap. You can't read the comments,
but like, you know, it was a lot of times people like questioning my nerd cred because it's like, you don't understand because you've been buff and attractive the whole time. I was like, actually, I haven't. I haven't. I mean, maybe I was, but I didn't know. I didn't take advantage of it. And I think that's always been like an interesting journey for me, is kind of realizing that people, they'll see us as we are, and especially when they see you as a play, you are looked at as this NFL player who plays D&D, and not, this is something you've always done, and you also happen to be an NFL player. And when people have that, I feel like people think we only have one thing we can offer as people. Like,
it's the whole thesis of the show is just the multifaceted nature of like, you aren't what you appear to be, and it's that can expand to a million different like if you're an actor, you're known for this actor, like you are known for this role. There's just so much that people's perception of you becomes reality, and you start believing in that, or you can say, no, let me correct you again and again and again. I am more than that, and I am 100% in the population of like, you need to defend you need to be able to be okay defending yourself from what people want to label you as.
100%. And I think it's not even a defense, it's just kind of showcasing, right?
It's just an argument. It's not like it's something that you want to be. I think you have a lot of control, not always, but a lot of times you have control over the way you're perceived. And
well, it's funny you should say that, because when I always kind of felt bad, when I was coming up doing comedy and writing, for doing so much. I always thought I was spreading myself too thin, because I was like, if I just focus and only do stand-up and only be a stand-up, don't do Geek and Sundry stuff, don't just like get a part-time job, hit the store, hit the Improv, hit the road, just only do stand-up, I'm sure I would get further. But because I only put so much in stand-up, I only put so much in improv, I only put so much in writing, it's not going to pay off for me. And in the end, I think it's made me more well-rounded as talent, because when things like, Geek and Sundry was starting up, it all started because someone was like, you're talent, you're on-screen improv comedy, you're talented, funny, and you're a nerd.
Yeah.
Let's get you in this space. And then, I met Zach Eubank, and then he hopped in and was working with me at Socialtron. And then over from Socialtron, he started Geek and Sundry, and he was like, you got a host. And all these things that I was passionate about seem to have paid off, because I get to
all those experiences got to lead into that one specific skill set that you didn't even know you had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like when you do a D&D show for the Cleveland Browns fans, And I got to say, I feel like that, what we don't talk about enough is how you did that show, and the audience was almost like a wedding, where like one half of
true.
it was.
Let's give a little bit of like background knowledge, because not everybody, I think, knows what's going on. In 2022, it was just last year. That's crazy.
It was that last year.
It was like 19, 20 months ago, but it was still just last year. 2022 in the spring. I'm in Cleveland. It was just last year. I know. I can.
Oh, it was because I was dating M.
Yes.
And oh my God. Yes.
No. So we were. I wanted to create a D&D charity event, because I thought, like, I'm learning more and more about the nerdiness that is in Cleveland, and I became cool with Brandon, who was our DM, and I'm like, let's make something out of this. Who do we want to do this with? And my mind immediately went to you. My mind immediately went to you, because you have that prior knowledge of football. You would understand what it's like. I think what's rare about the fact that you get to play alongside these NFL players.
Yeah.
And then we obviously had the absolute blessing of having a Bria, who I had not met at that time.
Really? Yes. That was just an ass.
She just came out to Cleveland, like, just trusting that I wasn't some crazy person.
Well, that's so funny, because I don't know if you've had her on the pod yet, but
not yet.
She was almost about to be in the Olympics.
She is a freak athlete.
Yeah. So it's so funny that you had all these like jocks doing D&D. But so we're in this room, it's live streamed, but there was a live audience, and the audience is split to two sides.
Straight up wedding side.
Yeah, with an aisle. And you can tell that on one side it is TTRPG nerds, and on the other side it is Cleveland Browns football fans.
Who bought their $50 ticket to be able to be within 50 feet of Myles Garrett.
Yeah. But like at the end of the day, everyone had a good time.
Oh
and I was
God,
like,
yes.
and that shows like
even the kid who got pelted by a brie in the face by a set of dice.
Yeah, it's just beamed at high speeds. Speaking of athlete, that arm.
Yeah. She was a thrower.
Yeah, you know.
But you were a thrower as well.
Yeah. I went underhand though because I know that.
That was my segue into your background.
An actual thrower. Oh yeah.
You were
I did shot and disc.
in track and field.
Oh yeah, it's so funny because it is definitely a big part of my origin story and almost probably my coach's villain origin story because I got into shot and disc probably 10th grade, was JV by the end of the year, and was like, I wasn't, breaking the school records and I wasn't like placing all the time, but I was definitely progressing. And I feel like, any high school athlete will say this, but I feel like if I went that year, that was going to be the year that I like showed out.
Yeah.
But that was also the year I joined Comedy Sports High School League. And they were at the same time, and my coach was like, you have to make a decision. Either you're going to play this or you're going to do that comedy thing. And he was not happy with my answer.
It was the improv version of High School Musical.
Yeah, he was not happy with my answer because it definitely was, I'm going to do this comedy thing because it was new and exciting. And I felt like because shot and disc was fun, but it's not like I had like prospects or I knew like I was going to get a scholarship or anything. And that's kind of how I looked at it. It was like, I don't think, because I feel like track and field is even harder because I feel like the top lane for most people is like the Olympics. Like that is where you're going. So if you're not breaking school records and you're not like crushing every meet, you're where are you going to go?
I think what's interesting is like the difference between I think track and field with football. I'm talking on my ass at this point because
we both are.
Absolutely. what else?
There's going to be like some like local track whole federation that we don't know about that someone's going to tell you about. But
well, I mean, a lot of high school sports is looking at the next step of looking at playing at college, and absolutely track and field and throwing and sprinting and all these different sports that you can get yourself involved in. Like there is a lot of passion that goes into this. What's I think just something that never clicked with me, and the reason I know not the reason why I didn't do it, but like I think the thing that shows within me for the fact that I didn't do it was football is known. It's the ultimate team game.
Yeah.
And when there are events like in track and field, or like if you're looking at tennis or if you're looking at golf, which are like can be team sports in certain aspects, a lot of it's like one-on-one, and you don't get to be alongside your teammate unless you're actually competing against them in the same heat.
Exactly.
So it's something that just didn't click with me, that I didn't have the natural like speed or jumping ability or whatever to be able to be part of that or commit myself to it. And I admire the hell out of all of those track and field athletes. But I think it's just a different type of team sport that I never got to experience, and I wish I did.
Yeah.
But it's a whole nother experience that that I just didn't get to have.
So then, what did you do in the
off
fall?
season?
Yeah.
Well, fall was football.
In the off season.
In summer and fall is dedicated to football. And what I learned my freshman year of high school was, okay, I love three sports. I love football, I love basketball, I love baseball. But I love baseball most. I am born and bred Dodger fan. Baseball was
you chose the right one.
Yes, absolutely.
Here's the thing: you got to understand this. Johnny grew up in Orange County.
No. I grew up in Burbank.
What?
You didn't know this?
No, all this time I thought you were an Orange County kid.
So I mean, kind of. I grew up in Burbank, going to Dodger games like 20 times a year because we had season tickets. I literally live like 20 minutes from Stadium Way.
Then okay, so when did you go to Orange County?
It was 5th grade is when I moved. to
Okay,
Orange
so you
County.
did split the diff a little bit.
I did split, but I still like I can claim both.
No,
but
I think you
definitely
can
am a
claim
Dodger
LA,
fan.
and I think you should. Look, this is one of my jokes. I always, comics, if we're about to say a joke in a podcast, but make it seem like we're actually going to say it, we always have to call out that it's a joke because it's hacked to pretend like you're actually coming up with it. But I always say that Orange County is Hollywood for MMA fighters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Costa
Remember
Mesa
when
specifically.
Tito Ortiz was a mayor, dude?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, buddy. We'll talk some off-stream stuff. I don't want to push away some of the fans. Don't stay with us.
No, Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, like that is central. Like they love training there because it's so cool and like they get to do stuff outside of training.
Oh yeah.
But it's actually I was thinking about something you were saying with all the different ways that you kind of split your time of doing stand up, doing improv, doing like all this performative stuff where you felt like if you would have committed to one thing, it would have gotten you further, but you feel like your collective experience allowed you to go in a completely different direction that you wouldn't have expected. For me, I feel like I went through that in the past, and I'm also going through it right now. Yeah. Because in the past, I was a high school quarterback. I went to college. I'm surprised you didn't know this. I was a high school quarterback that got recruited to Oregon, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Washington as a safety, actually, but like all these different schools. And then I ended up going to Nebraska, committing to Nebraska before I tore my ACL in high school.
That I remember.
Going through that process, became very hard to get back to 100% without being able to play. It's something that like not a lot of people who aren't athletes realize that like when you hurt yourself, you have to be able to get back to game speed and get into a game and consistently do that to actually find your groove again.
Yeah.
And honestly, long story short, I end up at UNLV, and my senior year, I don't have the starting quarterback job, so I asked to play special teams. I asked to play other positions and to be able to just get on the field. And that is what allowed me to be able to get to the NFL. And, obviously I spent time at fullback, but my body type very well could have lent itself to play either linebacker or tight end really well. And I think if there was a time to have switched, and this is like you're saying, hindsight being 2020.
Yeah,
it's a hard thing to be able to think about because it's not necessarily healthy, but it's also nice to be able to look back and like, okay, this could have been different. But if I had committed myself to tight end, my career might have ended differently. Tight ends are used a whole lot different than fullbacks in the NFL. It might have given me a different college experience, which it wasn't like the storybook college experience that a lot of people hope to have, like I hope to have. But all that being said, you can't necessarily look at the past and think about like everything that could have been because that's what allowed you to become where you are right now. Yeah. Now I say that all of the past is what like it reminds me of the past because all of that. It reminds me right now because we were just talking in the car earlier, like all the different stuff that I'm doing, as well as the fact that I'm still training. I'm still training to be a long snapper in the league. I hope to be able to get my chance. By the time this comes out, maybe that's all gone. Maybe I'm not made a team. Who knows? But I'm trying to put myself in a position to be in like a million different ways, like different directions at the same time. Hopefully a team picks me up at long snapper. Hopefully, the next big TTRPG thing works out for me, but I'm working at all of these at the same time. And I get worried that like, okay, maybe I should stick to one, but that would, I think, just be doing myself a disservice.
Well, the funniest thing I think I've learned being friends with you and so many like athletes,
I thought I was your only athlete friend.
No, I got a few. I got a few.
Damn it.
But like one thing I learned is that there is so much similarity between sports and entertainment. And one thing I think about now is like how in basketball, really, you need a Instagram, you need a brand before you go because you're creating the story. And I think even the same way where I think, all this stuff, you may be a long snapper and you have all this entertainment stuff, but that helps you out because the more that people are talking about you in general, the more people are like, oh, it's cool having this guy on our team because people care about him.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, no, it's like those things all kind of, it benefits in ways and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that it really is like everyone, at the end of the day, sports on a professional level is entertainment. So the more you can be attached to players off of the field, the more you can be invested in them on it. And and also just like one thing I learned because my dad was always so afraid of me getting into entertainment because he was he thought like You either get to be Leonardo DiCaprio or you don't, and it's over. And I think that's the same thing for sports, right? Everyone's like, you either are Michael Jordan or you're not. Or you don't. There's so many steps before that.
There's a huge middle ground.
Oh yeah. And even like when you think about like a lot of like I was, like I said, I'm getting into hockey and how like, or even I'll start with baseball, where baseball, when you get drafted, you're not just in the MLB.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I did not know that until like I was watching my buddy Carl play MLB The Show, and they have you start off,
and it's so much easier in the show because like at the end of your first double A season, you might get called up to the pros. Where there are guys who have been like spent 5-10 years in the minors before they get their chance in the show, and a lot of them don't get their chance.
I mean, guys we met on Nobody Asked, which I'm sure is announced by now, but I don't know if your episode's out. Yeah. But like there was a guy there who's like he was a AAA guy, and he was like, I think I might get called up sooner, and he was in it like 3-4 years. I'm like, or hockey, you with the hockey, you're with
a lot of minors in hockey.
But it's like interchangeable. Like Quentin Byfield, who I shout out because he's a black dude on ice, but he's plays for the King, but he was like brought up from the Ontario Reign, which speaking of which was the first like all black line since the 40s.
Wow.
It was Quentin Byfield, another guy who went to the Caps and actually won the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
And one guy who is still on the Reign. And it is like real interesting to see where it's like, you do a 2-way contract, you get called up for a couple of games. If you do well, you stay in the NHL. If not, you'll just pop back down for a bit.
Yeah.
But like it's like it isn't over, but it is like I think scarier.
It's similar to, I think, you can say that college football is kind of the minors for football. There's also the spring leagues, the XFL, the USFL, which now just merged. But then there's also practice squad, which is where I spent most of my time on the NFL, which is kind of like a minor league in itself. You're practicing with the guys. You're oftentimes just giving them a look on the practice field, on scout team. But it's kind of is its own training ground because every year there are stories of guys who make it off the practice squad and get to make a name for themselves, which is amazing. And it's just the same way that like, a minor leaguer from AAA might show up and, help his team, make a playoff run, or in the same thing in hockey. So it's, there's such, like you were saying, there's such a huge middle ground. You don't just have to be the Michael Jordan, the Leonardo DiCaprio. There are guys who like the whole role player idea is the fact that you are, not everybody can be a leader. Not everybody can be the all-star, the all-pro, the whatever. There are guys who have to be role players, or else your team isn't going to win.
Yeah, I'm pulling out my phone so I can pull up this actress because there's a actual movie, like an actual like entertainment industry story of that. Who she was in The Holdovers. She is nuts because she plays like this older lady in The Holdovers, but she is young. Divine Joy Randolph, who is 37 but plays like this like grizzled old lady. Awesome. But I was looking her up because like she's in that. She was in Rustin on Netflix, and I was like, oh, anytime someone's like on fire, I'm like, let me see what they're going on. But her story was she was the understudy in Ghost the Musical in London, and but then was so good they made her the principal role. So it is funny how like you can. I think there's a lot of people who can be so caught up in title and position, not knowing that is just an opportunity waiting to happen. And I think that happens more often than not. I mean, even out here when I started doing improv, I didn't get on a house team 2 times, and the second time I didn't get on was a year. A lot of people was like, if I don't get on this year, I'm out of here. Yeah. And I was like, I'm still gonna do it. And I was on a team, the big team, but formerly back then we were white women, and all black improv team called White Women. But we kept busting our ass performing, and then we got a monthly spot at the theater. Right. So it was like, oh man, I didn't get this this spot at the theater, but I kept going, and then I still got it. But then I even get it on better because it's on my own terms. It's with a team that I built from the ground up, and now we're off to the races. Yeah.
I love the stories that it requires patience, requires be able to deal with adversity and adaptability. Like there's so much of that obviously in entertainment and in sports. People, when I tell like my stories, like, oh, I tore my ACL, oh, I broke my ankle with the Vikings, oh, I had practice squad most of my career. but I still, be able to. I consider my career a success because I think anybody who makes it to the NFL is a
100%.
success. But
100%.
when people say like, "Oh my gosh, there should be like a book made," or like it doesn't happen a lot, but it's like people are being very kind when they say that. But it's like, "Oh, this is such an amazing story." It's like 99% of NFL stories are like that. There are the guys who have their cup of coffee on a practice squad in the offseason or in the, on the offseason roster and don't make a team, and that's still a success.
Oh, yeah.
Then there are guys who are, the Devon Achans of the world who are like immediately a success. And that's just like a skyrocket. The Aaron Rodgers who are like the top 1% of the 1%. But all of the people in between are still such a huge success that like, I'll give you a cliche that they say in the NFL. You know what the most important ability is in the NFL or in football and sports or whatever?
Is it going to be adaptability?
It's you're right on the same way. It's availability.
Ah.
It's the ability to be able to be available at the right opportunity. It's the whole idea of luck. It's opportunity meets preparation.
Oh yeah.
And you are always one snap away from being the next starter. One injury, one sickness when you're on Broadway away from being the next household name.
Yeah.
So being available, being the person who has been working so hard day after day, year after year, who has not quit yet, even though people have been telling you to, and you're there at the right opportunity, and it could be the next, it.
And I think that is just a universal thing.
Yeah.
It is very, it is very like it. I think everyone is just waiting for the opportunity, but they're not getting ready for it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that again because I think that's a bar.
People
are waiting for the opportunity, but not preparing for it because like you said, Actually's out. Azim, who might be in the trailer, might not. If not, spoiler alert, Azim is going to be in the show. Azim, if you don't know, is the black wizard kid on TikTok who wears the black wizard hat.
Yeah.
And I found him because somebody tagged me. I was like, he looks like you. And then I did a funny little video where I was like, who's your dad? Because I was like, Dad, this kid does look at me. And then like I followed him and I was like, oh, this kid is funny. He's really funny. He's a young kid. He's so funny. And then I got the opportunity to be the host of Actually.
Yeah. And
I was like, yeah, I want to put him on. I want to give him the spot. But it wasn't because I put my hand in the bag and picked it on, or I was cool with him and I put him, like, it was just his talent. Mm-hmm. I knew he was funny and I just wanted to showcase him to a wider audience.
Well, how cool is that for you to be in the position to be kind of like, I think kingmaker is kind of a weird term, but it's like being somebody who gets to put on the next person. Yeah.
I think it's very important. It comes with, you try to, you try to make that happen because it really is, I think, hard to stand out in these spaces. And when you have a space where you can give people a platform, you want to be cognizant of it. Yeah. And you want to be the person that you didn't get to have. Yeah. But it's not like, every season I'm going to be like, here's the one person on TikTok who's funny, but it is like like when you see someone who's like young, funny, interesting with a fun voice, it's hard not to want him to be on your nerdy show who's like a prominent funny nerd. And I'm sure there's tons of other ones, don't send me videos. It has to happen naturally. It has to happen naturally. But when it does, it's a really beautiful thing because to me, it's just like, I'm very much a proponent of like, because I love, when those opportunities come for me. And that's really how it is in the end, is anytime I got to work with my peers or people I looked up with, it was lots of times either they're like, I heard you were funny or I saw you were funny and I'm doing this thing and I want you on it. Like Paul F. Tompkins, I used to listen to all the time.
That's awesome.
When I was like, driving to work at the LA County Register Recorder and hear him on Comedy Bang Bang, Scott too. And so when they're like, hey, do you want to be on the pod? I'm like, yeah. But it wasn't, they weren't just like, hey, here's a favor. Right. They're like, no, you are, I think the pod would be better if you were on it. So let me come on, once you come on, do it.
I'll tell you a little bit of a story that I feel like relates to it a little bit. When I had my opportunity, I'm done with my career at UNLV. I'm hoping to be able to, I'm trying out with the Vikings. So it's a 3 or 4 day long process of going through rookie mini camp, and I'm coming out as a tryout player to be able to play tight end, a position I've never played in my life.
Yeah.
And at the end of the practice on Sunday, they asked me to stick around for another day to go through physicals, to go see the doctor. I'm like, okay, this must be a good thing. And I realized that 3 other players are doing it out of the 100 players or something that were there. So I'm like, okay, this has got to be a good thing. Like, let's just get through these doctor's appointments and it'll be great, right? So I get to I forget why I'm telling the story at this point, but I get to the go through the process of like, oh, you know what it was? I go through the doctor's appointments. It all went great, and you're in this like it's like the war room. This is the draft room. This is where all of the execs, the coaches, are in these rows at tables and watching the multiple TV screens in front to be able to like talk about the draft and you know, discuss amongst themselves. There are cameras facing them and stuff, and we're in that room. And we're waiting in that room. All 4 of us obviously passed the physical exam, and one of the assistant general managers comes in and says, "So congratulations, we want you on the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to sign you onto the Minnesota Vikings." And like that is like a similar, like feeling like a similar experience of, you know, all of this. I watched them on, you know, growing up. It's like you're giving, you guys want us on your team. And I followed it up with the fact that about a week or so later, I was helping volunteer for a coach's camp. Like the players were invited on the weekend. Like if you weren't doing anything, like, hey, come coach. And I wanted to look good for the coaches. I'm like, okay, I'll come volunteer. This little kids camp. And I end up going, there's like next to the indoor facility, which is where the kids were running around. I end up going to this little like Gatorade bar. It's our snack bar. We'd have like, you know, nutritional stuff like Gatorade or power bars or whatever. So I was hungry or I was thirsty. I grabbed a Gatorade and I was walking back to the field, and I saw our general manager, Spielman. And I'm like, I haven't met him yet. I got signed on by the assistant GM, but I haven't met him yet. Let me just introduce myself to him. I feel like it's the right thing to do. It's basically my boss right now, and I haven't met my boss. So I want to make myself look good. I'm going to introduce myself and say, hey, Mr. Spielman, I just want to say, kind of tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, just want to say thank you for bringing me on. My name's Johnny Stanton, and I just want to say I appreciate you bringing me on to the Minnesota Vikings. Trying to do something like professional, kind, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, you don't know who the hell you you don't think I know who the hell you are. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. So it was one of my like, it was kind of humbling and like also invigorating at the same time. It's like, this guy knows who I am.
Yeah.
Like obviously he hired me, but it's like,
but you don't think like, oh, he's been thinking about me. He knows.
I mean, he's the head honcho. He's like one step below the owner.
Yeah. He's like, I had to check the box.
Yeah. My name's on the check.
Yeah. You good. You good. Nice to meet you, bro.
Yeah. It was an interesting, it was a fun time over there in Minnesota.
Oh yeah. I know. No, I know it was cold.
It was cold. Not my first time there, because when I got cut, or when I got hurt, it was in the preseason, so it was in August, and they still considered me part of like the roster on injured reserve that season.
Yeah.
And then they cut me after the season when I got cleared, and then it took me all of 2019 getting healthy again, and in November they re-signed me, and so I'm back in Minnesota for only 2 weeks there in Minnesota, like the end of November, beginning of December. And that's when it was cold.
Oh no!
And that was just like the beginning of the winter, you know? Like, but I remember, oh my God, getting cut that second time when I was on practice squad. I was only there for 2 weeks. I didn't set any roots down, but getting cut that second time was harder because I got cut on a Tuesday, like late morning, and the rest of that day basically was like, hey, so we're gonna fly you out today. I'm like, I have all my stuff at the hotel. I have like all this, like, you know, all the gear in the facility. Like I need to get all this stuff together to be able to make a 5 o'clock flight.
Yeah.
Just an absolute nightmare of like trying to get everything together. There was so much stuff that I wanted to be able to bring home that I didn't have the bag room for. So I'm like, okay, let's just get a box and ship it home, which costs, you know, a couple $100 or something. It was a nightmare. But it's like this whole time, then I have to go return the rental car. Then I have to go like all this logistical stuff, getting cut in, or like, you know, they talk about in when you get traded and stuff, like it's such a logistical nightmare. Yeah. That like it's a whole, like on top of the fact that you don't have a job anymore, but it's like, it's just this whole thing that is just not fun.
Yeah. So also I'm guessing, so they They just cut you, and they don't help with any of that. They're like,
Well,
all
they
right.
they do. They will schedule the flight home for you. They're like, we'll buy your way home.
Of course that. But I mean,
They're kind enough-
they
they're kind
didn't
enough to
box
do
your
that.
stuff up. They didn't give you any.
What I didn't know is that they actually do. They box your stuff up and send it to like in the locker room. Like they'll box up your locker and send it to you.
Oh, so you could have just left it.
I could have
but
just
you're-
left it.
Oh, but you're like, I'm sad. I need this sad montage.
I know. I'm like, I want
pop-
to keep everything that I had.
Yeah.
I will say when I got when I got hurt in the 2018 preseason, usually you're supposed to like buy your jerseys at the end of the season, or if like if you trade a jersey or something, you have to pay for it. It's like usually
Yeah.
$250 or something. And same with the helmet. Like after the season's over, you can buy your helmet from the team. So I break my ankle, and the next day or the 2 days later or something, I'm on my scooter. I'm on crutches coming through the facility, and I'm kind of just gathering up the stuff. And I go see the equipment manager. Awesome dude. I think this is his last year. Actually, I think he just retired maybe. And I'm like, hey man, do you think I can get that helmet? He's like, I got you. Don't worry. He totally hooked me up. He gave me the jersey that I got hurt in, and he gave me the helmet that I got hurt in, which was fine. I didn't care. It was just like I like being able to collect the stuff that I played in for sure.
Yeah. If they would have won the chip that year, and you're in injury reserve, do you get a ring?
I do. I'm not 100% sure that it would have
Damn, they
been the
should've won
same. I know they
They
should
should have won that one.
Well, you know what was frustrating. I'll tell you what happens when you get a ring. I think on practice squad, or like if you're in the building, you don't get the same exact ring. I don't think they put the same kind of diamonds or whatever in it, but it looks the same. It's like I don't know if I was on injured reserve, if they would have given me the same ring. Obviously, it doesn't matter. But that year, the first game of the year, I remember this very clearly, and I'll say his name, the kicker who missed, because he's an incredibly successful kicker for the Raiders at this point. Daniel Carlson was in my draft class 2018. He was like a 5th round pick or something in the draft. It's a kicker. It usually doesn't happen. You don't get draft kickers very often. And he ended up missing either 3 field goals or 3 kicks, or 3 PATs or 3 kicks. It was like an incredibly bad game for him. I felt so bad for him. I think we ended up tying the Packers. It was like first game of the year playing the Packers, rivalry game, and he ends up missing all those kicks and causing it to be a tie. And he ends up getting cut the next day. Ooh. First game, rookie kicker missing those 3 kicks, and he gets cut. Now he's one of the top three or like 5 or so kickers in the league, which is like obviously a huge impatient mistake by the coaching staff or whatever. But if those kicks hadn't been made, the Vikings end up making the playoffs that year. And as somebody who's living at home watching the games on the couch, still considered part of the team, getting my check as like an IR player, which is coming every 2 weeks, it's just a lower number than I would have gotten if I was on the team. I would have gotten the playoff check. And I was like, I wasn't a part of it. I was I was just sitting on my couch at home. I'm like, come on guys, make the playoffs so I can get that extra check.
Yeah, let me get that playoff check, baby.
You said your mom is from New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. So it's so funny. And I was able to beat the allegations because I was
I just love that phrase.
Yeah, because I was connected to it, but I will admit that like I did like fully lock in as a Saints fan when we won. Yeah. Because like it took over our household because my mom's from Louisiana, but because LA never had a football team, I just never even thought about football.
Everybody in LA had their favorite team outside of the city if they were a football fan.
Yeah, like and like I just really wasn't messing with the 49ers or the Raiders, especially you grew up in LA, the Raiders, you was
certain crowd.
Yeah, it was a specific crowd. 49ers, not too far off. Chargers, huh? Well, that's so interesting. So you said when you're in the league, you don't need to be a fan.
No, you're a fan of people. You're a fan of players.
Okay.
People you played with, people you're buddies with. My best man at my wedding is a receiver for the Dolphins, so I'll root for the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Do you feel like because there are some players who's like, this is my team because it's always been my team, and then there's people who are fans of the team that they're on. So do you think let's say I'm gonna speak it. We're having this call. You killed it in spring. You get called up to the Saints. Now you've played for the Saints 3 seasons. Are you now going to be like, okay, I'm a Saints fan now because I'm...
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, first off, last year I remember texting you when my agent... I felt so bad because I'm like, I shouldn't be texting him this. I should because it's...
You can text me. I'm not going to leak it.
No.
You got industry secrets.
It's not even a secret. It was just the fact that I had my agent text me and say, hey, the Saints might be interested in you. long story short. And they were, but until they're not, like they didn't bring me in or anything.
Yeah.
But my dumbass was like, who would be stoked about this is Ify.
Yeah.
So I texted you, and I hope I didn't get your hopes up too much, because I definitely got my hopes up.
It's so funny. I don't, because like that's that's a very like Hollywood thing, right? Is people telling too many people about a thing that is
not
unsure.
Yeah.
Like especially like also,
and I
like,
tried to couch it. I'm like, this isn't like a thing that.
Well,
is real
I knew
yet.
because of that. Like because I'm and then that's why if you notice I never like said what happened with that, because because
you're not an asshole.
But I feel like people don't even realize that, right? Where you have people who's like, I sold a show, I sold a show, but like if you don't know, when you sell a show in Hollywood, so first you pitch a show, and let's say it's a scripted show about like my new Power Rangers show, but it's like dark and gritty, so HBO Max like it, and I sold it. So I sold the show.
Cinematic universe now.
Now what happens is we figured out how much I'll get paid as the EP, the writer, and if I'm in it, the actor. We work that all out up top, and I'm talking about you work out everything like merch. You work out like pretty far ahead in advance. And you then are tasked with writing the pilot.
Yeah.
So you sold the show, but you didn't like write the pilot yet. So then you're getting paid to write the pilot. So you write a draft, you send it in, you get notes, you do another draft, you send it in, you get notes, you get another draft it's already agreed upon how many drafts it is. Then you send in the final draft and they make a decision. At this point, they decide whether or not they want to make the pilot. Let's say they do, just for the sake of this. So then you go ahead and you shoot the pilot. It's great. You cast everyone. You sit there. You're going back and forth with notes, trying to figure out like, oh, okay, is this something that that you like? You're going back and forth with the studio, going over the draft, and then after that, you have the final part of this. There is a comedian who does a really good breakdown of this. I'll link Johnny so you can put it in the show notes or whatever. But then they show it to like a focus group and they do notes off of that. And then they decide whether it goes to series or not. And then you sold a show.
Yeah.
But a lot of times from that first pitch, a lot of people are going around being like, I sold the show. I sold the show. I showed the show. I'm gonna do this. This is all the stuff I want to do.
Start spending money that they don't have yet.
And then so what happens is then you go through that draft process. They go and they're like, okay, this is good, but we don't really like this show. We're gonna pass on it. So now that show's done.
Yeah.
Or you can try pitching it around to other networks, but then they have to pay. Lots of times the problem that happens is like you're choosing, if you're lucky, you're having a bidding war, right?
Right.
And you're and like say 3 different places want it and they bid over it. 9 times out of 10 you're going with the person who's willing to pay you the most. So if you're going to the person who's willing to pay you the most, by the time that show is passed on and you're trying to come to the network's like, well, we already told you we're not going to pay that much. So we're not going to, because they have to buy, because the network still owns it. So they have to
pay the price that they already paid.
So that they can get their money back. So it kind of ends up being dead in the water unless there's like buzz behind it or something. But yeah, no, so you have a lot of people who will go and they'll do it, or even worse, there were people which this is like, most people know not to do this, but I've seen this happen before where it's like big meeting and you're in like the lobby of like Amazon or Showtime or something, like big meeting, big pitch, send good vibes, send this. Yeah. And then you got people being like, how'd it go? And then they didn't buy it. So now you got to answer a whole bunch of people who's like, how'd it go? How'd it go? All because you got too excited, Meanwhile,
no, it's definitely something that happens in football. It's like, I get a lot of people asking me like, okay, how's football going? How's football going? And it was, especially last year, I was just so like bitter about not being part of a team. Yeah. And that like, I just didn't want to talk about football at all. I just hated the question. I hated people asking about updates. It's like, if I had an update, I'd tell you. Yeah. Or you'd see it on social media or what have you.
Yeah. I remember I had a friend who wrote on a movie and then they made a sequel. And I was like, oh, did you write on the sequel? He was like, you see me talking about it? Ooh. I was like, yeah, I should have used context clues. Because also that's very Googleable. Right. That was on me. But yeah, it is like, it's so funny because, everybody wants to like be in on the exciting news, but it is like, if it's exciting news, you will know.
Yeah.
You would
and all
not
they
have
want to
to
do
ask
is
them.
be excited for
Yeah,
you.
exactly. But the
But
thing
it's
is,
still presumptive.
yeah, but also it's the thing, right? Where it's like, if it was a thing that to be excited about,
You'd hear me screaming from the rooftops.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think we could talk about this for a million hours.
Yeah, we
which
really
I think
can.
we should. I want to have you back on as a regular
Yeah, man,
guest.
I'll come
if you'd be
back.
willing. I will say, I want you to be the first person for athletics check to put your number in the rafters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh?
We're gonna. I know it's a little bit metaphorical. It's a little bit more. It's something that I want to. It's a tradition that I want to start. We're gonna put your number up in the rafters on the top of the screen for when this comes out, and you're always going to be known for this number. So what I'm gonna have you do is we have a couple dice here. We've got we've got a D100, and I want you to find out what your number is, and that's the number that's going to be retired for you.
Okay.
So we're gonna find out what number is going into the rafters for Ify Nwadiwe. Oh God, roll this one again. It's gonna be 80 something. You're gonna be tight end or receiver. 87. That's a good tight end number right there.
Yeah.
So Ify
have a good
Nwadiwe,
tight
number 87, up in the rafters. Why don't we watch it be risen up into Staples Center right now? Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you
for that. The next thing I'm gonna do, the last thing I'm gonna do for this, which we will be able to do multiple times. So do not worry if it's a low number. I'm gonna ask you to roll an athletics check for me.
Okay.
So if to finish the show, before we do that, Ify, thank you so much for being on this episode of Athletics Check. Can you give us a little bit of a plug to tell us about Actually, tell us about everything that you're working on?
Yeah, definitely. Hey, if you're watching this, you don't already, definitely subscribe to Dropout. It's a Dropout TV. Great platform with lots of great shows featuring Johnny, myself, many of your favorite nerds. But I am the host of
It's the show you've seen on TikTok. You've seen it on TikTok.
Yeah. I'm the host of Actually. I'm on Game Changer this season. Nobody asked, and I don't. I'm gonna stop there because I don't know what else is announced. But by now, Nobody Asked is a thing. I'm on Game Changer. I'm the host of. Actually.
Hell yeah. Well, this is going to be a big year for you. I'm stoked for you. What we're going to do next after you roll an athletics check is if you're a Patreon listener, we're going to have a little D&D moment for Ify. But it's not just going to be a moment like we have in previous episodes, because Ify graciously wants to come back on the show. I think we might as well give him a reoccurring character, a serialized story. So what you're going to see is Ify creating a bit of his character, as well as just telling us about his character, and then we're going to get into a little bit of an intro into a little mini campaign. But for now, Ify, thank you for being on Athletics Check, and why don't you roll me an Athletics Check? 16. That's a good number right there.
Yeah.
What do you think a 16 gets you? What is that?
I mean, well, I'm sure I'm at least anywhere from a 17 to 20
Oh,
in
absolutely.
my strength.
And that's what would you say, like you're squatting right now? What are you putting up?
Oh man, right now I'm still dancing around that 405. I haven't burst too high above it.
Hell yeah.
But yeah.
I think with a 17 to 20, I think you're going to get that PR soon.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Hell yeah.
Ify, thank you so much, man, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to rate it and leave us a review. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts can be found. Don't forget, we do have a Patreon in which we talk to each of our guests about playing Dungeons & Dragons, and I run them a little adventure. I hope you guys do enjoy that if you are a Patreon subscriber. Audio editing and music by the incredible co-host Travis Reeves. Video production and editing by Frank Janish. And I'm your host, Johnny Stanton IV. To find out more about what I do, check out my website, stantoniv.com. This has been an effing funny production. We'll catch you next time, but until then, can you roll me an athletics check?